Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss constraint block in SystemVerilog. Useful stimulus is more than just random values. As we know that in randomization we generate some random values, but the useful random value is very important. There should be some relation between the variables. So the constraint determine the legal values that can be assigned to the random values. The constraint especially focus randomization on a particular area of interest. The values of random variables are determined using constraint expression that are declared using constraint block. Constraint blocks are like members of a class like a task, functions and variables. Constraint block name shall be unique within the class. So if we see the syntax of constraint, keyword constraint and constraint identifier, that constraint block name, and we should write the expression here. So we'll see some example how to write constraint, how to do constraint based randomization in SystemVerilog. So if you see in this example, that packet is defined as a class having two variables, data and address of bit type 1 to 0 and 3 down to 0 as a random variables. Here I'll define a one constraint. This is a constraint and constraint identifier as a constraint underscore add. Here I'm impose some expression or condition. This address should be less than 10. So now if you see module test end module, in that I'll create one variable pkt as a packet type. It acts as a handle, then initial begin. Now I'm creating instance of this class. I'm creating some objective. Now I'm pkt dot randomize. I'm randomizing this object 10 times here. I'm generating 10 different values for this data and address. But what will be the condition here? I'm impose one constraint that address should be less than 10. If you see the output for this program, then it generate the data value. What is the range of data? 1 to 0. The range here 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 to 3. 1 down to 0. So it generate randomly. So 0, 1, 2, 3 in between that. And also if you see the address, that the range of this address is 0 to 15, because 3 down to 0, 4 bits, it generates from 0 to 15. But what is the condition we mentioned? What is the expression in the constraint block? That address should be less than 10. If you observe that address values, all the values, whatever the values generated by this randomization method should be less than 10. Then here at least one variable in each expression should be random, either rand or randc. So if you want to define constraint in a particular class, at least one variable should be a rand or randc. Now see in this example, so I defined one class as age. So here I'm declared one random variable as age bit type 7 down to 0. I'm defining one constraint age adolescence. Age should be greater than 12 and also age should be less than 19. So just module and module. I'm declaring age child as age class. It acts as a handle. I'm creating object for this and I'm repeating these 4 times. Now age child dot randomize. Now I'm randomizing this object. This object contains one property as one random variable age and also one constraint that age should be greater than 12 and less than 19. If we see, if we randomize this packet, age child randomize 4 times, then this is the output. That age should be between 12 and 19. In this example, we have one random variable that is age. So see another example where that class does not contain any random variable, but if we define constraint, how it looks. Now see in this example, same example I'll take, but here age is not a random variable. Here I'm not declared with a rand modifier. It is a normal variable we can call state variable. Here I'm imposing some constraint, age adolescence, like age greater than 12 and age less than 19. So same way if I randomize 4 times this objective, now what will be the output? Here we can see the output consistency. Constraints are inconsistent failure. Constraints are inconsistent and cannot be solved because in this object, whenever if you randomize this object, it does not contain any random variable. So at least one variable in each expression should be random. So in this, age is a one variable. It should be random definitely. So now age should be rand and randc, so it is not random variable. So we got an error. The two constraint inconsistent failure. See some other examples here. So there should be a maximum of only one operator in an expression, whereas while defining the constraint in that block, so there should be a maximum of only one operator. We cannot use more than one operator of this, such as less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and greater than. We'll see some examples like. So now here we are discussing order of constraints. Now see, I'm defining one class name of ordered constraint having three random variables: low, mid, high, bit type 7 down to 0. So I'm defining one constraint. That constraint name is value: low less than mid, mid less than high. So I'm module test, just I'm creating a handle and instancing this class. I'm creating some objective. Now I'm randomizing this objective 4 times. Now if you see, I'm displaying, if that randomize is successful, then it returns 1, then if block is executed. So now if I randomize, now I'll get these values. If you observe this output, the low should be less than mid, but if you observe here, the low is 150, mid is 104. Here low is 237, mid is 170. So low is 64, 176. Means here if you observe this, in some cases the low should be greater than mid also. So simply we observe this low and mid are not constrained. So what happened here? If we observe low less than mid less than high, this expression contain more than one operator, less than less than. Now see, in this case it is like a binary condition. First it check left to right, it check low less than mid. Based on the output low less than mid, then it returns either 0 or 1. Based on that I is constrained. So first the expression low mid is evaluated, which gives either 0 or 1. It is maybe true or false. Then that I random variable is constrained to be greater than that result. That high should be greater than 0 or greater than 1. So now the variables low and mid are not randomized here. Sorry, the low and mid are randomized but not constrained. So we got a wrong output. So now if you see another example here, in this case, now same example I take, but I have two expressions that contains only one operator each expression: low less than mid, mid less than high. Now if we execute this program, then output low should be less than mid and mid less than high. So if you see in this example, so we'll get a correct results. So now that there should be a maximum of only one operator in an expression. Where is a two operands? Where is a one operator? There is a simple example. So now we'll discuss external constraint block. External constraint block. So we can define the constraint block outside of the class also. Like see, constraint blocks can be defined inside the class as well as the outside the class, like external method. Constraint blocks can be defined outside their class declaration only if constraint prototype appears in the class declaration. So if you want to use that constraint block as external constraint block, it should be define the prototype. You should be declare that prototype, constraint prototype, in the class declaration itself. So now that constraint prototype can take either of two forms. One is implicit and explicit. Here class name, so have random variable. Now constraint keyword and prototype 1. So if you want to declare this constraint as explicit, then we can use extern constraint prototype 2. There are simple two ways we can prototype these constraint blocks. Now see, these two type of constraints can be completed by providing external constraint block using the class scope resolution operator. So we can define these two constraint block, external constraint block, prototype 1, prototype 2 be declared or completed in outside the class by using this scope resolution operators. So we'll see some example how it works. Now this is a simple example. Constraint, external constraint. This is the class name. and scope resolution operator. This is a constraint identifier, constraint name. We write some expression here. So we can write like this. So this is the constraint. This is the constraint identifier, constraint class name here, class name, scope resolution operator, and constraint identifier, constraint name, and some expression. So it shall be an error if more than one external constraint block is provided for any given prototype. So if more than one external constraint block prototype, then it get an error. In the class, we have only one external constraint block for a given prototype in the class. It shall be an error if constraint block of the same name as a prototype appears in the same class declaration. So with the same name, if we have declared another prototype in the class, we'll get an error. So we'll see some examples. External constraint blocks. If the implicit form of prototype is used, there is no corresponding external constraint block. So we have two type of constraint blocks, external constraint block. One is implicit, second one is explicit. In case of implicit form, there is no need external constraint block defined outside the class. So in that case, the constraint shall be treated as an empty constraint, and it issue a warning. A warning may be issued. So it treated as an empty constraint. So what is mean empty constraint? An empty constraint is one that has no effect on randomization, equivalent to a constraint block containing the constant expression 1. So for example, if I declare my prototype of constraint is implicit, there is no need be any external constraint block outside of the class. In that case, there is no corresponding external constraint block, then it treats as a empty constraint. So now see in this example, it is a simple class packet having one random variable data, and I'm defining one constraint data range C1. It is an implicit form. There is no external keyword I used here. So in the prototype. So now I'm defining this constraint outside of my class, constraint, class name, scope resolution operator, and constraint name. So my expression is data less than 21. So now I create one module, creating handle. Now in shell begin, creating an object2. I'm executing this 3 times, repeat 3. So I'm randomizing this PKT, this object 3 times. Now I'm displaying that data value. If you see this output, so with external constraint block, so it is an implicit form. So with some external constraint block. Now see that output is data is equal to 7, data is equal to 18, data equal to 7. So what is the condition here? What is the expression? Data less than 21. This is an implicit form. There is no external keyword is there, but we can define that constraint outside the class. So with external constraint block. If we see in this example, it is the same example, but I didn't mention any external constraint block without external constraint block. So here also the tool won't give an error, just it may issue an warning. So what is the output? The output is 25, 27, 26 because it acts as an empty constraint. The constraint block containing the constant expression 1. So what is the range of this data? It is a random variable. The range is 4 down to 0 means it's 0 to 31. So it generates random values in between 0 to 31. So from this example, we understand if it is implicit form, no need to define corresponding external block outside the class. It won't give an error. It gives simple one warning, and that constraint may treated as a empty constraint. See another example. Here, if the explicit form of constraint prototype is used, it shall be an error if no corresponding external constraint block is provided. If I declare any constraint block, here this is my constraint prototype as external. So this is explicit form of prototype. Now it should be definitely external constraint block. If I declare external, if I use a keyword here external, definitely we have some external constraint block outside of the class. So with external constraint block, if we see that package as a class having some random variable data, and some constraint data range C1. Now I'm defining the external constraint block constraint, that's class name, scope resolution operator, and that constraint name. Then this is my expression data less than 21. So module packet pkt. So here just creating a variable with packet type handling like simple pkt acts as a handler. Then in shell begin, I'm creating one objective. I'm randomizing this objective pkt 3 times. Now if you see the output of this waveform, like this program 7, 18, 7, what will be the condition? Data less than 21. So whereas if I declared this data range C1 as an external constraint, I use some keyword like external. So there is no external constraint block defined outside of the class. So now if we execute without external constraint block, if I try to randomize this one, we'll get some error missing explicit external constraint block definition constraint external dot sv3. So there is no external constraint block for the given prototype data range C1. So whereas it is not implicit form, if it is an implicit form, it won't give an error. Whereas if the constraint prototype is explicit form, so if you use extern, it should be a definition outside the class. So in this video, we'll discuss what is mean constraint, what is the, how to impose constraint in SystemVerilog, and what are the external constraint blocks with some examples. Thank you very much.